We will now move on to question number 2. Honourable Carmel Sepuloni.
Madam Speaker, to the Prime Minister, does he stand by all his statements and actions?
Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Thank that member for that very, very, very clever question. The answer is yes.
Supplementary. Thank you. Does he agree with Nicola Willis that she delivered new Cook Strait ferries on the 11th of December 2024? If so, why was Winston Peters subsequently dispatched on a global search for replacements, including meeting with the company who was contracted to build those ferries in the first place?
Well, the reality of the matter is that the Minister of Finance inherited an absolute mess. What was meant to be $401 million for 2 ferries, and then a total infrastructure cost under 1.4 all up with the ferries, had gone from there to over $4 billion, which was a warning that Treasury gave the previous government. And so having dealt with that, the job happened to be by chance passed on to me, and I've sought to rectify the matter at a massive saving to the New Zealand people.
Does he agree that Nicola Willis was too hasty in cancelling the ferries, as reported by the New Zealand Herald?
The reality is that we will all have those sorts of criticisms being made, but the New Zealand Herald today got it massively wrong in the editorial in the second to last paragraph, and I'd ask them, for goodness sake, start getting the facts right for a change by reading the full story, which was told not by me, not by Nicola Willis, but by Treasury itself to Grant Robinson.
Madam Speaker, will Winston Peters prioritise negotiating the break fee with Hyundai before he enters into another contract with them, or will he pursue both negotiations concurrently?
I appreciate what the member's asking, but the so-called break fee lies as a matter between KeyRail and Hyundai. The new issue that we're dealing on is separate. However, in our representations, it was made very, very clear to me that while that matter's separate, if there was to be a new deal, then there would be a reconsideration of the prior settlement to which we are not a party at the moment.
Madam Speaker, how many millions of healthy school lunches could Nicola Willis's ferry break fee have paid for?
Well, all I do know is that we've got a sort of a parallel circumstance here. The government inherited a school lunch program unfunded, and we inherited a ferry program unfunded as well.
Madam Speaker, how many Kiwis are now out of a job thanks to the government giving the school lunches contract to multinational corporation Compass?
Madam Chair, I don't think anyone can answer that question on speculation, but if the member wants to write a note or put it in written form, we'll get an answer.
Supplementary. When Nicola Willis said she has delivered, did she mean delivering 31,000 more people to work in Income New Zealand, delivering 72,000 New Zealanders overseas, or delivering thousands of inedible meals into rubbish bins in schools across the country?
I think the Minister of Finance was saying when I have delivered that she meant the answer that came in the quarterly update this morning. We have turned the circumstances of this country's economy around. It's the first bright news we've had. And like a big vessel out at sea, it is hard to stop, it is hard to turn an economy around.